Bayang magiliw, pero silanganan, alag ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuwid ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisihin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simula, sa langit mong bughaw, may bilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang siskap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniling, ang bituin at araw na kailan ang may magdidilim. Lupa at araw na may hagit at sinta, huwag langit sa piling mo. Ang hindi kaya dapat may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Magandang araw po sa lahat ng ating mga taga-subaybay. Ako po si Lihan Alianza, isang Junior Research Associate ng Universidad ng Pilipinas, Manila, Kolehiyo ng Agham at Sining sa Manila Studies Program. Samahan niyo ako ngayong araw para sa isang makabuluhang panunood sa serya ng mga lektura na handog ng MSP, ang MNL, Mga Natatanging Lektura. Ang ating panayam ngayong araw ay may focus sa kasaysayan ng mga piling pamantasan o universidad sa Maynila. Ang MSP o Manila Studies Program ay ang Regional Studies Center para sa Manila ng Universidad ng Pilipinas at Research Center ng Kolehiyo ng Agham at Sining sa UP Manila. Ang MSP ay itinatag upang makabuo ng mga pananaliksik at pag-aaral na magagamit sa pagbuo ng mga patakaran at programa na higit na magpapaunlad sa Metro Manila bilang isang premier urban center ng bansa. Nakatuon nito sa mga issue at mga pag-aaral patungkol sa lungsod ng Maynila at mga karatig nitong lugar sa aspetong kasaysayan, kultura at sining, isyung pisikal at pangkapaligiran at iba pang mga isyung pampatakaran. Para sa pagsisimula ng ating programa, pakinggan po natin ang isang makabuluhang mensahe mula sa butihing dekana ng Kolehiyo ng Agham at Sining, si Profesor Maria Constancia Carillo.
Good day, everyone. On behalf of the College of Arts and Sciences, I welcome you all to the first in a series of lectures organized by the Manila Studies Program, or MSP, which spotlights the history of three prominent universities in the city of Manila. MSP is the Regional Studies Research Center for UP Manila. Based in historic Padre Faura at the College of Arts and Sciences, it was established in 1988 to produce research studies that can be utilized in the development of policies and programs that will further develop Metro Manila as a premier urban center of the country. And to this end, it focuses on issues and concerns of the city of Manila and its immediate environs, including history, culture and arts, physical and environmental concerns, urban development, and other policy-related issues. Manila, of course, is well known as the home of the University Belt, where thousands and thousands of Filipinos embark on their college education, and which has resulted in Manila being the melting pot of people from provinces near and far. In this webinar, the spotlight is on the history of three prominent universities: Polytechnic University of the Philippines in Santa Mesa, Lyceum of the Philippines in Intramuros, and the grand old dame of Philippine universities, with the University of Santo Tomas in España. I'd like to thank our speakers, Mr. Mark Joseph Santos of De La Salle University, Mr. Jean Michael Atanasio of the Lyceum of the Philippines, and Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Albella for sharing their work and expertise to the UP Manila community and beyond. And I'd like to express my thanks as well to the organizer of this webinar, Dr. Wesley Reyes, convener of the Manila Studies Program, for organizing this unique webinar that gives us an overview of the diversity and richness of our academic institutions. To our guests, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us in our future webinars. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po, Dean Carillo. Ngayon naman ay tatawagin ko ang kasalukuyang Manila Studies Program Convener para sa kanyang mensahe at pagpapaliwanag sa tema ng mga lektura. Salubungin po natin ng isang masigabong virtual clap si Dr. Wesley M. Reyes.
Magandang araw sa lahat ng ating taga-subaybay. Nagagalak ako na makasama kayo ngayong araw sa ating inihandang gawain, ang MNL o Mga Natatanging Lektura, isang serye ng mga panayam online handog ng Manila Studies Program ng UP Manila College of Arts and Sciences. Inilunsad natin ang ganitong gawain, una upang magkaroon ng pagkakataon na talakayin ang mga paksang may kaugnayan sa Araling Maynila, at ikalawa, ang online format ay upang mas marami pang maabot nito. Sa pamamagitan nito ay natutugunan natin ang layunin ng ating programa na magsagawa ng mga saliksik at palaganapin ito. Umaasa ako na mananatili at makikinig tayo sa mga panayam na iikot sa mga partikular na tema. Ang bawat tema ay nakatuon sa mga mahalaga at napapanahong paksa sa larangan ng Manila Studies. Sa ngalan ng Manila Studies Program, nagpapasalamat ako sa lahat ng mga tagapagsalita, gayon din sa inyo na sumusuporta sa ating gawain mula sa loob at labas ng Universidad ng Pilipinas. Maging daan nawa ang ating gawain sa lalong pagsulong ng Manila Studies. Magandang araw sa lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Doc Wensley. Ngayong hapon ay makakapiling natin ang mga magbabahagi ng kanilang panayam. Hayaan niyo po akong ipakilala ang unang tagapagsalita sa araw na ito. Nagtapos si Mark Joseph Pascua Santos ng Bachelor of Arts in History, cum laude noong 2015 at Postbaccalaureate in Teacher Education noong 2017, kapwa mula sa Politeknikong Universidad ng Pilipinas at Master of Divinity sa Manila Theological College noong 2021. Nakapaglathala ng mga artikulo at panunuring aklat sa mga akademikong journal tulad ng Saliksik e-Journal, Talumat e-Journal, Tala, Talastasan, Social Sciences and Development Review, Mabini Review at Historical Bulletin. Mayatda at patnugot din siya ng 4 na aklat at 4 na kabanata sa mga aklat. Nakasentro ang interes ng kanyang pananaliksik sa araling kapantasan ng indigenization movements o Pilipinisasyon sa akademya tulad ng pantayong pananaw at teolohiyang Pilipino. Nagturo din siya sa PUP Departamento ng Kasaysayan mula 2016 hanggang 2019 at sa Departamento ng Agham, Panlipunan at Humanidades ng Centro Escolar University mula 2020 hanggang 2023. Kasalukuyan siyang Lecturer 8 sa Departamento ng Filipino ng De La Salle University, Manila, Project Assistant sa DLSU Research and Grants Management Office at Associate Professor 1 sa School of Arts and Sciences ng Philippine Women's University. Para talakayin ang pagtatampok sa kasaysayan ng PUP ng BA History Batch 2019 at sa papel ni Nemesio Prudente sa paglalago ng universidad, salubungin natin ng isang masigabong palakpakan, si Professor Mark Joseph Santos.
Isang makasaysayang araw po. Bago po ako magsimula ay nais kong magpasalamat kay Dr. Wensley Reyes sa kanyang imbitasyon na makapagbahagi nitong lektura. Inatasan ako ni Dr. Reyes na magbahagi ukol sa kasaysayan ng PUP at minabuti ko na ibahagi ito sa pamamagitan ng pagtatampok sa isang mahalagang aklat ng BA History Batch 2019 ng PUP. Yung aklat na kasaysayan ng PUP, gayon din yung mahalagang papel ni Nemesio Prudente sa paglago ng Sintang Paaralan. So ito po yung aking aklat na nais itampok dito sa lekturang ito, itong aklat na kasaysayan ng PUP. Hatiin ko ang lekturang ito sa 3 bahagi. Una ay pagpapaliwanag sa kaligiran kung paano nabuo yung aklat na ito. Ikalawa ay yung ilang tala lamang ukol sa kasaysayan ng PUP alinsunod doon sa aklat. No, nilagay ko dito na ilang tala dahil sa iksi ng panahon, no, ay kaunti lamang yung mga datos na aking maipapasok ukol sa kabuuang kasaysayan ng Sintang Paaralan. Ikatlo ay yung mahalagang papel na ginampanan ni Prudente sa paglago ng PUP. Una, kaligiran sa pagkabuo ng aklat. So, nabuo po ang aklat na ito bunga ng imbitasyon kay Dr. Sus A. Salazar na magturo sa PUP. 2 semestre nagturo si Dr. Salazar sa Departamento ng Kasaysayan sa PUP hinawakan niya sa unang semestre yung thesis writing na ginawa niyang historical methodology, at sa ikalawang semestre naman ay hinawakan niya yung seminar in history na ginawa niya namang philosophy of history. At naging mag-aaral niya dito yung mga fourth year college student ng BA History noong panahong iyon. Yan yung ilang larawan na makikita nyo kung saan nagtuturo si Dr. Salazar doon sa south wing ito ng PUP. At kilala naman si Dr. Salazar doon sa kanyang pag-aatas, no, sa mga tao na sumulat ng mga artikulo at pagsasama-samahin, no, bilang isang proyekto. Ganito rin yung ginawa niya sa mga mag-aaral ng PUP. Bunga noong 2 semestreng pagtuturo niya ay 8 aklat yung nalikha ng section na ito, na makikita nyo dito sa larawan. Yung unang 2 aklat mula sa kaliwa ay mga katitikan ito, minutes of the meeting, sa pagtuturo ni Salazar sa PUP. Itong ikatlo, metodolohiyang pangkasaysayan, ay patungkol naman sa, ito ay collection ng term paper ng mga estudyante about sa historical methodology during first sem. Yung ika-4 hanggang ika-7, no, ay mga aklat naman sa pilosopiya ng kasaysayan. Merong pilosopiya ng kasaysayang lokal, pilosopiya ng kasaysayang pambansa, pilosopiya ng kasaysayang regional, at pilosopiya ng kasaysayang pandaigdig. At kasama dyan yung PUP. Itong 8 aklat na ito, nalilikha ng section na iyon sa patnubay ni Salazar, ay inilimbag ng Bagong Kasaysayan noong 2019. At nabanggit ko nga na kasama yung kasaysayan ng PUP dito sa 8 aklat na ito. Nung si Salazar ay nagtuturo pa sa UP Diliman, sa Department of History, sa isang interview ko kay Sir Atoy Navarro, ay nabanggit niya na ang ginawa ni Dr. Salazar, imbis na yung typical na per group yung gagawa ng thesis, ang ginawa niya ay per class. Isang buong klase ay isang thesis ang gagawin. At ang pinagawa niya noon sa iba't ibang batch ng mga history major sa UP ay ukol sa kasaysayan ng isang partikular na lungsod sa Kalakang, Maynila, na may mahalagang ginampanan during 1896 Revolution. No, kaya mayroong section, mayroong batch na gumawa ng kasaysayan ng Makati, kasaysayan ng Quezon City, Caloocan, Mandaluyong, Marikina. Gayon din yung ginawa niya sa mga estudyante sa PUP. Imbis na per group or individual, yung thesis ay ginawa niyang per class. At ang inassign niya na thesis sa kanila ay yung kasaysayang institusyonal ng PUP. At ito nga yung ibinunga noong requirement na iyon, itong kasaysayan ng PUP. No, ito yung thesis ng BA History Batch 2019 sa PUP. At ito yung mga tumayong patnugot sa aklat na iyon. Gaya ng typical pa rin kay Dr. Salazar, sa kanyang mga klase ay humahanap siya ng mga estudyante na may potential sa pamumuno at pananaliksik, at yun yung binibigyan niya ng mas malaking role. At ito yung 4 sa ilang mga estudyante sa napagkatiwalaan ni Dr. Salazar na mamuno dito sa proyektong ito. Nandiyan si Nico J. Ramos, kasalukuyang nag-AMA History sa UP Diliman, at kasalukuyan din siyang nagtuturo sa senior high school ng Ateneo. Si Adrian naman, na kasalukuyan ay sunod-sunod na yung inililimbag nito ni Adrian ukol sa historical film. Siya ay kasalukuyang nagtuturo sa Maris School sa Marikina, at nag-aaral din siya ng MA Philippine Studies sa UPD. Si Arjen Ribas naman ay kasalukuyang nagtuturo sa Technological University of the Philippines. Si Danica De La Paz naman ay nagtuturo sa St. Matthew's College sa San Mateo, at kumukuha rin ng MA Philippine Studies sa De La Salle University. Nahati yung aklat sa 2 bahagi. Yung unang bahagi ay diachronic na pagtalakay sa PUP. No, yung kasaysayan ng PUP, particular na yung main campus sa Mabini Campus sa Santa Mesa. Kung mapapansin nyo dito, yung periodization sa kasaysayan ng PUP ay alinsunod din ito sa atas ni Dr. Salazar. Ito ay hinati nila batay sa pagpapalit ng pangalan ng institusyon. So dati, Manila Business School, 1904 to 1908, tapos naging Philippine School of Commerce, 1908 to 1932, and so on. No? Dahil yung pagpapalit ng pangalan ay senyales ng pagbabagong institusyonal, no, noong pamantasan. Kasama nito yung paglago ng student population at pagbabago ng mga polisiya. Ganyan din yung status nito bilang isang paaralan. Sa ikalawang bahagi naman, ito ay collection. Mas makapal yung ikalawang bahagi kaysa sa unang bahagi. Binubuo yung ikalawang bahagi ng mga appendice. Meron dyang part na collection ng mga larawan ng universidad sa daloy ng kasaysayan nito. Meron dyan biography ni Nemesio Prudente. Mamaya ay tatalakayin natin si Prudente at yung mahalagang papel niya dito sa PUP. Meron din bahagi dyan ukol sa mga naging presidente ng PUP at meron ding appendice ukol sa kasaysayan. Ito yung mas makapal na bahagi, yung pagsasakasaysayan sa iba't ibang mga branch and campus ng PUP. Kasama din dyan sa mga appendice. So ngayon ay tumungo na tayo sa ikalawang bahagi. No, kung saan, gaya ng aking binanggit dahil sa kakulangan sa oras, ay ilan lamang yung mga datos na aking ilalapag dito ukol sa kasaysayan ng PUP na hinugot mula doon sa aklat. So tignan natin yung ilang mga datos na ito sa alinsunod sa iba't ibang period sa kasaysayan ng PUP. Una, of course, dito yung Manila Business School. Ito yung kauna-unahang pangalan ng PUP. Naitatag yung Manila Business School noong 1904 at yung pagkakatatag ng Manila Business School ay alinsunod doon sa layunin ng mga Amerikano doon sa kanilang colonial system kung saan nais nila na mag-produce ng iba't ibang mga institusyon na may iba't ibang specialization. At yung Manila Business School ay tinatag nila para maging sentro ng pag-aaral ukol sa komersyo. No, of course, ay kasabayan din ito yung pag-usbong ng kalaunan ay magiging PNU na sentro naman of course ng pagtuturo. Nariyan din of course ang UP at iba pa. So yung Manila Business School ay naitayo alinsunod sa ganoong layunin ng specialisasyon ng colonial government. At isa sa mga ebidensya na maituturo, no, para paniwalaan na 1904 na itatag itong Manila Business School ay yung isang liham na isinulat ni David Burrows, dati ay direktor ng edukasyon sa Pilipinas. At yung letter na isinulat niya kay Frank Carpenter, no, ay nagme-mention siya doon. Nagre-refer siya sa isang business school sa Maynila. No, at yung Manila Business School ay ito yung kauna-unahan na business school noon sa Maynila at ito yung kaisa-isa dati. So ibig sabihin ay ito yung wala nang iba kundi ito yung nire-refer ni David Burrows doon sa kanyang liham. At yung liham na yon ay mayroong date na October 1904. Ibig sabihin by that date ay nag-exist na yung Manila Business School. Yung kauna-unahang location nito ay sa Calle Gunao sa Quiapo. Sa unang period ng paaralan, no, ay limitado lamang yung ino-offer nito dati. No, meron siyang mga subject na ino-offer on English, bookkeeping, commercial arithmetic, batas pang komersyo, estenografiya, pagmamanikilya or typewriting. Kung mapapansin niyo, yung halos lahat ng ito ay related sa issue ng commerce. No, dahil nga ang purpose ng Manila Business School dati ay mag-produce ng mga clerk, gayon din mga empleyado sa mga negosyo. At bukod sa regular classes, nag-offer din ang MBS ng isang night school, no, kung saan ito ay dinesign para sa mga may trabaho, no, na gustong makapag-aral para maging kwalipikado sila sa mas mataas na mga trabaho o mga trabahong may mas mataas na kita. Sa panahong ito, dahil maliit pa lamang yung building na inookupahan ng MBS, ay nasa 500 na estudyante lamang yung kanilang kayang i-accommodate. Pagsapit ng 1908, ay binago yung pangalan ng Manila Business School. Ginawa itong Philippine School of Commerce, PSC. Ito ay bunga noong bahagyang paglago sa student population ng paaralan at kasama din dito yung kagustuhan ng paaralan na unti-unting magkaroon ng national status. At sa panahong iyan, gaya rin ng nabanggit ko na, ang layunin nito ay mag-produce ng mga clerk, ng mga trabahador sa mga negosyo, partikular na yung mga negosyo ng mga mayamang mga banyaga dito sa Kamaynilaan. At gayon din para mag-serve sila sa sektor ng revenue at ng finance sa mga local government units ng mga provinces. Sa panahong ito, by pagsapit ng 1910, yung gusali na ginamit ng Philippine School of Commerce ay yung building sa San Miguel, no? Yung General Solano Building. At ito ay dating kinatatayuan ng Senado ng Pilipinas, ganyan din yung Bureau of Audit. Ayan. So, mayroong panahon, no, matagal din yung panahon, 12 years na nagsanib ang Philippine School of Commerce at saka yung Philippine Normal School. No? Nagsanib sila, nag-exist sila sa isang campus dahil nagkaroon ng problema ang Philippine School of Commerce sa pondo. Dahil limitado yung pondo niya at hindi na kayang i-support yung pangangailangan sa pasilidad, ay nakigamit ito ng pasilidad ng PNS. No? At nung siya ay na-integrate sa PNS, tinawag siya noon nung ito ay na-integrate sa PNS, tinawag dati ang Philippine School of Commerce na Department of Commerce. So sa buong 12 years ay parang bahagyang nawala yung sariling identity ng Philippine School of Commerce, no? Dahil nga naging mere department lamang ito sa loob ng PNS. Ngunit matapos yung digmaan, naghiwalay na rin yung PNS at itong Philippine School of Commerce. No, at yung naging building, bagong building na kinatatayuan ng Philippine School of Commerce ay yung Lepanto Street, no, na kasalukuyang SH Loyola sa Sampaloc. Ayan. Sa panahong ito, no, ay again bahagyang dumami although hindi pa lubusan, no? Bahagyang dumami yung student population ng PNS, no? Umabot ito sa 1,000. No? At sa pagkapit ng 1952 ay nabago yung pangalan ng Philippine School of Commerce, ginawa siyang Philippine College of Commerce. Ito ay alinsunod doon sa Republic Act number 778 na pinirmahan ni Elpidio Quirino. At yung kauna-unahang naging presidente ng Philippine College of Commerce or PCC ay si Luis Reyes. Si Luis Reyes then, by the way, yung kauna-unahang Pilipinong guro na sumali sa kaguruan dati ng Manila Business School. Noong panahon na ang Manila Business School ay puro Amerikano yung mga guro, si Luis Reyes yung kauna-unahang Pilipino. Ilan pa sa mga naging presidente sa yugtong ito ng Philippine College of Commerce simula 1952 hanggang 1978 ay sina Pacifico Belila, Victor de la Torre. Diyan na rin pumasok, by the way, si Nemesio Prudente sa panahong ito. No? Sa panahon ng PCC, naging presidente si Prudente. Nariyan din si Isabelo Crisostomo at saka si Pablo Mateo. Itong dalawang huli kong nabanggit ay mga presidente ng PCC nung panahon ng batas militar. Yung later on, yung PCC ay papalitan siya ng pangalan at gagawing Polytechnic University of the Philippines. No? At yung yugtong ito ng PUP ay tatalakayin ko under ng pagtalakay sa mahalagang papel na ginampanan ni Nemesio Prudente. No? Nagsama ako dito ng hiwalay na part para talakayin yung ambag ni Prudente sa paglago ng PUP. No, dahil isa siya talaga sa malaki yung naiambag, no, dito sa paglago ng institusyon ng PUP. Sa katunayan, sa isang comment section ng Facebook post ko dati na may petsa na October 7, 2021, no, may pinost ako dito about kay Nelson Navarro, isang yung author ng biography ni Prudente. At nag-comment doon si Dr. Salazar kung saan inexplain niya dito na yung dahilan kung bakit yung aklat na kasaysayan ng PUP BA History Batch 2019 kaya may malaking espasyo na inilaan doon para sa pagtalakay kay Prudente ay dahil sinadya ni Dr. Salazar na ipatampok ito, no, iniatas niya sa mga estudyante na itampok si Prudente, no. And I quote, ito yung sinabi niya doon sa comment section. Sabi niya sa akin, although marami lang typo, no, dahil nasa 89 years old na ata ngayon si Dr. Salazar. Sabi niya, pinatampok ko kina Arjen yung si Prudente. Sa aking kamalayan, ang PUP ay si Prudente, ang punot dulo ng pagiging universidad ng PUP. No? At dahil dito, naglaan din ako ng isang mahalagang, isang hiwalay na bahagi para talakayin yung ambag ni Prudente. So dito na tayo sa ikatlong bahagi. Para sa pagtalakay sa bahaging ito, ang pangunahing kong batis ay itong nabanggit ko na biography na isinulat ni Nelson Navarro na Doc Prudente, Nationalist Educator. No, sa pagkakaalam ko, ito pa lang yung nag-exist na isang buong aklat na biography ni Prudente. Bukod dito ay gagamitin ko rin yung chapter na aking isinulat doon sa aklat namin ni na Dr. Habar, Axel at Sir Jeff. Yung aklat namin na 50-50, yung chapter 42 ng aklat na iyon ay ukol kay Prudente. So isa rin ito sa ginamit ko na pinagalawan ko ng datos dito sa susunod na mga slide. Ilang mga impormasyon muna ukol kay Prudente. Ito yung ilan sa mga ibinabansag sa kanya. No, dahil nga sa malaking ambag niya sa PUP, may mga tumatawag minsan sa kanya na father of PUP. No, dahil yung essence ng pagiging, yung PUP na alam natin ngayon, no, marami ang nagsasabi, including yung si Dr. Salazar, no, na ito ay maikikredit, no, yung present na stature na meron ng PUP ay maikikredit kay Prudente. Tinatawag din minsan siya na big brother of activists, dahil siya rin yung naging instrumento sa radicalization ng PUP. Mamaya ay matatalakay rin natin ito. Tubong Cavite siya at marami yung involvement niya sa mga nationalist movement bago pa man yung role niya sa PUP. Siya dati ay noong bata-bata pa siya ay naging courier siya ng mga guerrilla na lumalaban sa mga Hapon. Nung panahon ng martial law, isa rin siya sa mga mariin na tumutol sa diktadura, no? At yung kanyang pagtutol yung isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit siya yung isa rin sa mga hinuli ito ng panahon ng batas militar at pinahirapan, no? Kaya nakaukit yung kanyang pangalan sa bantayog ng mga bayani. At isa rin sa mga kauna-unahang PhD in political science, si Dr. Prudente, no, sa Pilipinas. Nakamit niya yung kanyang PhD Political Science sa University of Southern California. At yung kanyang disertasyon ay ukol sa United Nations sa context ng Cold War. Ayan. Marami munang pinag-applyan si Prudente, bago siya napunta sa PUP. No, pero marami sa mga paaralan na pinag-applyan niya pagbalik niya sa Pilipinas ay nireject siya, hindi siya tinanggap. At isa sa mga rason ay dahil overqualified siya. Noong panahong iyon ay kakaunti pa lamang yung may PhD Political Science sa Pilipinas, no? At yung ilang mga kolehiyo, universidad ay hindi siya tinatanggap, no, dahil nga mauungusan niya agad yung ilang mga matatagal ng mga faculty member, no, na wala pang PhD, at in this case walang PhD sa political science, no. Ang tumanggap sa kanyang application ay yung Far Eastern University. Nagturo siya particularly under the Institute of Arts and Sciences, no, na nasa pamumuno noon ni Alejandro Roses, na tumayong dean ng Institute of Arts and Sciences. Kaya naman, dahil nagtrabaho siya sa ilalim ni Roses, na-observe ni Roses yung kanyang husay, no, sa pagtuturo. Kaya naman noong nung si Diosdado Macapagal ay nanalo bilang Pangulo ng bansa, si Roses yung kanyang kinuha na secretary sa Department of Education. Tapos si Roses naman, yun nga, dahil nga nakita niya yung husay ni Prudente sa pagtuturo sa FEU, ay inalok niya si Prudente, no, na maging presidente ng Philippine College of Commerce. Dahil din, of course, hindi lang sa husay na ipinakita ni Prudente sa FEU, kundi yung kanyang credentials. Ayan. Nung 2 beses na nungkulan si Prudente sa PUP, itong larawan niya na makikita dito, ito yung larawan na bata-bata pa siya, no, doon sa unang yugto ng pamumuno niya sa PUP. Yung unang yugto ay 1962 to 1972. Yung ikalawang yugto, natigil lang yung kanyang pagiging presidente, lalo na dahil sa pagdedeklara ng batas militar. At na-resume ito after ng martial law, kung saan naging presidente ulit siya noong 1986 up to 1991. Si Prudente yung naging instrumental para makuha ng PUP yung kasalukuyan nitong kinalalagyan na lupa ngayon. No, yung campus nito ngayon, yung kung tawagin ay Apolinario Mabini Campus sa Santa Mesa, na presently kinalalagyan ng main campus ng PUP, ito ay nakuha ng institusyon dahil sa pagsisikap ni Prudente na ipaglaban yung pondo, na tumaas yung pondo ng PUP. No? At sabi nga ni Nelson Navarro doon sa kanyang aklat, maraming pagkakataon na nakikita ng mga Pilipino sa national television si Prudente na nakikipagtalo sa mga senador, no, sa Senado para i-insist yung pondo ng PUP. At ilan dito sa kanyang mga inisyatiba yung aking inilista dito, although kakaunti lang ito, no, napakarami pang mga inisyatiba na ginawa ni Prudente noong siya ay Pangulo. No? Ilan dito ay yung mga nakalista dito ay yung mga ginawa niya from 1962 to 1972, yung unang presidency niya. Nariyan yung siya yung dahilan kung bakit dumami yung social sciences courses sa PUP, at gayon din yung mga liberal arts courses, at bumuo rin siya ng scholarship program para sa mga deserving na students. Nandyan din yung student loan fund para tulungan nga yung mga estudyante sa pag-aaral. Siya rin yung namuno sa paglilimbag ng kauna-unahang PCC Faculty Journal sa PUP. Gaya nung aking nabanggit, na antala lang yung kanyang pamumuno dahil sa batas militar. Nung panahon ng batas militar, dahil nga sa mariin na pagtutol niya sa diktadura, isa siya sa mga ipinahuli. At noong February 1974 siya tuluyang nahuli, no, dahil nung ipinataw yung batas militar ng 1972, isa siya sa mga nakalista na huhulihan. So napilitan si Prudente na mag-underground. But later on, yun nga, tuluyan siyang nahuli noong 1972. At iba't iba yung ginawa sa kanya na form of torture, no. Isa dito yung pinaglalaruan siya ng mga sundalo, no, ginawan siya ng Russian roulette. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay lalagyan yung kargada ng baril ay lalagyan ng isang bala, tapos iikot ito, tapos tsambahan, itututok ito sa iyong ulo, tapos tsambahan kung tatapat yung nag-iisang bala, no, para pumutok or hindi. No, bukod doon, meron pang one time na dinala siya sa sementeryo, tapos naghukay doon yung mga sundalo, tapos inilibing siya ng buhay. Meron lamang iniwan na maliit na butas para makahinga siya, para hindi siya mamatay. No, so ikinulong din siya sa isang seldang napakasikip, at kung saan nandun siya dudumi, doon siya iihi, at hindi inaalis iyon para manatili yung sangsang nung lugar, no, ng ilang araw. Tuluyan siyang nakalaya noong 1974, noong December 1974, no, ilang buwan after yung kanyang pagkakabilanggo, almost 1 year after na kanyang pagkakabilanggo. No? Pero sa halip na matakot ay patuloy na lumaban si Prudente. At ilan sa mga samahan na kanyang sinalihan para sa paglaban ay yung SOTO, PIDEM, nandyan din yung Movement for Concerned Citizens for Civil Liberty. So imbis na matakot siya ay patuloy siya na lumaban. At ito ang dahilan kung bakit after na mamatay ni Ninoy, isa siya ulit sa mga ipinahuli ni Marcos. Sa tuluyan lang siyang nakawala noong after ng EDSA People Power 1. So after EDSA 1, nakalaya siya, naibalik sa kanya yung pagiging presidente ng PUP. Dahil yung kasalukuyang presidente ng PUP na appointed by Marcos after EDSA 1 ay napilitang umalis dahil nirally ng mga estudyante. So sa panahon ng kanyang panunungkulan, gaya ng aking nabanggit, no, isinight na sinabi ni Dr. Salazar na malaki yung naiambag ni Prudente sa paglago ng PUP. Makikita ito sa pamamagitan ng pagkukumpara. No, kung ano yung state ng PUP bago pumasok si Prudente at ano na yung naging kalagayan nito after magretiro ni Prudente bilang presidente. Bago siya pumasok noong 1962, ang PCC ay mayroon lamang 1,200 na students. Tapos ang building lang nito ay isang maliit na building sa Lepanto. Pero after niyang magretiro sa pagiging presidente noong 1991, ay umabot na sa 50,000 yung estudyante ng PUP. No? May isang malaking campus na ito sa Santa Mesa at hindi lang iyon, marami ng sangay at marami ng campus yung PUP sa Metro Manila at sa labas ng Metro Manila. So ganito kalaki yung naging difference, no, ng dating PCC at kasalukuyang PUP, no, dahil doon sa presidency ni Prudente. And kagaya ng nabanggit ko kanina, siya rin yung naging instrumento sa pagpapalago ng radikalisasyon ng PUP. Madalas na nag-iimbita siya ng mga guro, mga tibak na guro mula sa UP para magturo or para magsalita lamang, no, sa magturo or magsalita sa PUP. At siya rin, by the way, yung naging dahilan kung bakit naipasa yung tinatawag na 1989 Prudente Ramos Accord. No, ito yung batas na pinagbabawal yung presensya ng kapulisan sa loob ng PUP para maiwasan yung dating karahasan na ginawa ng militar sa ilalim ni Marcos. Kaya nga malaking kabalintunaan kung maaalala natin sa panahon ni Duterte ay pinipilit yung mga state university na magsagawa ng mandatory drug test. At isa yung PUP sa pinressure. No? Isa rin sa madalas na nire-red tag. At sa panahong iyon, of course, sa harap ng drug on war na questionable dahil sa dami ng mga inosenteng kabataan na namamatay, of course, ay marami yung nagdududa dito sa drug test na ito na gagawin ng PNP. So yung student body at maraming kaguruan ng PUP tutol dito sa mandatory drug test na ito, pero itinuloy pa rin ng rehimeng Duterte, no? At kabalintunaan na ginawa pa yung drug test sa mismong Nemesio Prudente Hall, isang bulwagan sa PUP na nakapangalan kay Prudente, no? Kabalintunaan kasi si Prudente nga yung mismong naging nanguna para maipasa yung accord na ito na ipagbawal yung presensya ng PNP at AFP sa loob ng PUP. So, lastly, ito na yung kasalukuyan. Ilang impormasyon lang ukol sa kasalukuyang estado ng PUP. Ngayon, mula sa dating maliit na paaralan ng Manila Business School na may 500 na students, sa kasalukuyan, ito na sang-ayon doon sa isang dokumento na galing sa website ng Commission on Audit, ang PUP na ang may pinakamalaking student population sa Pilipinas. Sa panahon ng around 2019-2020 ay umabot sa 71,000 yung estudyante, yung student population ng PUP. At naisasama rin ito sa iba't ibang mga ranking. Halimbawa sa EduRank, nabigyan ito ng rank na top 20 sa hanay ng 100 universities sa bansa. Top 6 naman ito sang-ayon sa Unirank. At ito common na information na nagsisirculate sa social media rin, at sa mga balita na yung PUP ay consistently ay top 1 sa preference ng mga company sa hiring sang-ayon doon sa JobStreet. At bukod sa malaking student population, mayroon na ring isa rin ang PUP sa mga university na may pinakamaraming branch and campuses sa buong bansa. Meron na ito sa kasalukuyan na 25 na campus at marami sa mga campus na iyan ay naipatayo sa panahon ng panunungkulan ni Prudente, including yung PUP Taguig, Ragay, Camarines Sur, Maragondon, Cavite, Santo Tomas, Batangas, at yung Unisan, Quezon. So, yun lamang po. Marami pong salamat sa inyong pakikinig.
Maraming salamat, Professor Mark Joseph Santos, sa makabuluhang pagtalakay sa napakahalagang paksa na isang kasaysayan ng Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Ngayon po ay tutungo na tayo sa susunod na panayam. Ang ating ikalawang tagapagsalita sa hapon na ito ay buhat sa Lyceum of the Philippines, kung saan ay isa rin siyang mananaliksik, si Professor Jean Michael M. Atanasio. Siya ay isang university researcher sa Research and Innovation Center at isang special lecturer sa Kolehiyo ng Internasyonal na Relasyon o College of International Relations sa Lyceum of the Philippines University. Siya rin ay isang mananaliksik sa Veterans Foundation of the Philippines at siya rin ay nagturo ng mga asignaturang kasaysayan at agham panlipunan sa Universidad ng Santo Tomas at Kolehiyo de San Juan de Letran. Siya ay nagtapos ng bachelor ng sining na may focus sa kasaysayan sa De La Salle University. Kumuha rin siya ng Certificate for Teaching Program sa Pamantasang Normal ng Pilipinas o Philippine Normal University. Kasalukuyan siyang kumukuha ng kanyang master's degree sa Philippine Studies sa Universidad ng Pilipinas. Siya rin ay isang knight ng Knights of the Order of Rizal at miyembro ng kapisanan ng Vexilologiyang Pilipino. Para sa ikalawang paksa, The History of the Lyceum of the Philippines, pasalubungan po natin ng isang masigabong palakpakan si Professor Jean Michael Atanasio.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Mr. Jean Michael Atanasio from the Research and Innovation Center of the Lyceum of the Philippines University, Manila. It is my great honor and pleasure to be invited by the Manila Studies Program to deliver a short historical discourse on the history of the Lyceum of the Philippines University, Manila. This academic institution that stands at the very heart of the old walled city of Manila, which is now we call Intramuros, can be considered to be short by the standards of the many prestigious universities of the country. Despite its short history, it adds a vibrant and rich, colorful story to the once vibrant understanding of the history of the city of Manila. It is now my great honor to present to you this historical discourse of the venerable academic institution called Lyceum of the Philippines University. For us to better understand the history of the Lyceum of the Philippines University, we should first discuss the founder of this institution, a name that is synonymous with nationalism, love of God, and love of country, the former President Jose P. Laurel, the President of the Second Republic of the Philippines, later Senator of the Republic of the Philippines. His name has become synonymous with nationalism, pride of country, and love of God. But the question is, who was Jose P. Laurel as the founder of this academic institution? First and foremost, Lyceum of the Philippines University prides itself on its long and rich tradition of academic excellence through the legacy of its founder, Dr. Jose P. Laurel. Dr. Jose P. Laurel has the distinction of serving all three branches of government: in the executive branch as a former president, in the legislative branch as the former senator, and in the judiciary branch as the former associate justice of the Supreme Court. Dr. P. Laurel is also a successful lawyer, legislator, constitutionalist, jurist, writer, scholar, statesman, a philosopher, and, above all things, an educator. Dr. Laurel's concern for education was his most abiding passion all throughout his life. A graduate of top educational institutions such as the University of the Philippines College of Law, Escuela de Derecho, University of Santo Tomas, and Yale University, his credentials are stellar by the standards of the time. He wrote extensively on education and managed to teach in several academic institutions in Manila despite his numerous commitments. Despite his busy schedule as a statesman and a politician, Dr. Jose P. Laurel is a very passionate educator. To him, teaching is a noble profession, and he invariably referred to the teacher as, I quote, the artisan of the soul, the molder of man's character, and the maker of future citizens, end quote. He said that every Filipino teacher should be regarded as, I quote, a living model of a Filipino patriot, end quote. In life, he was to become the foremost exponent of these ideals, brought to by his burning passion in nationalism and the ideas of the Nacionalista Party. The very seed of the Lyceum of the Philippines has been planted long before he became the founder of this institution. The educational philosophy of Jose P. Laurel is that for him, education is something to foster the desire for the truth and as a link to nation building. He also pledged the students to become a great servant and of great service to the Republic, and a school that he will now call the People's Lyceum, wherein students can have an affordable education fostered by the ideas of the love of God and the love of country through Filipino nationalism. And this, until today, remains the core values of the Lyceum of the Philippines University. The foundation of the Lyceum of the Philippines University didn't happen overnight. This was a lifelong ambition and dream of its founder, Dr. Jose P. Laurel. Thus, the birth of an idea began as early as the 1920s. As a graduate student at Yale University in the early 1920s, Jose P. Laurel reflected upon establishing a school in his own country. However, he has no name for it yet then. He asked himself, why may not the Philippines someday be the center of culture and learning in the Far East? He also told one of his friends, and he said, I started to look back historically when Alexandria was once the Mecca for those thirsting for knowledge and wondered why there is no real center of learning in the Philippines. He was also referring, of course, to the famous historic Library of Alexandria, which has lost in antiquities. The idea gained added inspiration in the course of his travels all throughout Europe when he visited some of its renowned universities, such as Sorbonne University in France and Oxford University in England. When Jose P. Laurel sailed for home, he carried with him this idea. Tucked somewhere in his heart, like a seed that it was, he grew it in stature to germinate and eventually reach out to the light in its own time and season. Through the years, he nourished it by developing a passion for teaching and a deep concern for the welfare of education. He often spoke about it through his friends and, of course, among academic circles. In July 1950, months after his defeat in the national elections, which he lost the presidency to then President Elpidio Quirino, Jose P. Laurel and some of his close associates further discussed their plans to start the school that he envisioned in 1920 when he was a student at Yale University. Thus, in September of 1950, the Lyceum of the Philippines was finally incorporated as an organization and an academic institution. In the meeting in June 23, 1951, it marks a significant development in the history of Lyceum of the Philippines. It was called for the purpose of electing the permanent officers and the first members of the Board of Trustees. The official record of that meeting reads in part, on motion of Justice Padilla, seconded by attorney Jovito Salonga, the following people were to be elected as members of the Board of Trustees to serve for a period of 1 year in accordance in the provision of the bylaws of the corporation. Thus, the pioneer members of the Board of Trustees are the following: Jose P. Laurel, Claro M. Recto, Ramon Avenceña, Pedro Sabino, Leon Quinto, Jorge Vargas, and Ambrosio Padilla. Eusebio Lopez was later added to the roll more than a year later, following the amendments of the bylaw, which increased the members of the board from 7 to 9 members. The names that I just mentioned are all something have in common, and thus, namely, most of them are members of the Nacionalista Party, where Jose P. Laurel himself was an active member of the said political party. And finally, the dream became a reality. On the 7th of July, 1952, the Lyceum of the Philippines formally opened its door to the public on this day. Dr. Jose P. Laurel intended this school to become a center of academic excellence in the Philippines and in the Far East. Thus, this is the official year and the official date of the foundation of the university, now called the Lyceum of the Philippines. Many were wondering why Jose P. Laurel named his academic institution Lyceum, and what's the story behind the name Lyceum. Laurel's profound admiration for the great seeds of learning and his known love for classical thoughts explain the name of the school which he founded, Lyceum, from the Greek word Lycaon, which is a grove in ancient Athens wherein Aristotle engaged in the search for wisdom in truth with his students. Just as his teacher Plato, who founded the academy, Aristotle was also established a school which now bears the name of the university. The motto he adopted for the school is the Latin phrase Veritas et Fortitudo, which means truth and fortitude, the likes which can also be found in his alma mater, Yale University, with its motto Lux et Veritas, and also in Harvard with its motto Veritas. It has taken more than a generation before Laurel's dream of an Alexandria could finally emerge into reality. But perhaps it is only fitting that the birth of the Lyceum of the Philippines should come at the final decades of his life and career, like those crowning pieces of his towering pyramid of achievements. He later added Pro Deo et Patria, for God and country, which also reflects Dr. Laurel's belief that the core value of learning and character can also be formed for God and country. The Lyceum, in the words of Justice George Malcolm, is the way his monument. And now let's talk about the campus site wherein Lyceum of the Philippines now stands proud in Intramuros. But where did it all begin? And how did Dr. Laurel choose the present site of his academic institution? Choosing the site of this new institution by Jose P. Laurel is no easy task. At first, he decided to seek some properties at Isaac Peral Avenue, but the cost of the land area was too much for his budget. At Calle Concepcion, however, he found some suitable sites that belong to the Episcopal Church and also to the YMCA, which is now SM Manila. Also, he started to also search the former site of the Ateneo de Manila at Padre Fauro Street. But just like the ones in Isaac Peral, these areas and properties are too expensive for Jose P. Laurel. And then, Jose P. Laurel finally settled in and chose the former site of the historic Hospital de San Juan de Dios inside Intramuros. The Hospital de San Juan de Dios was formerly administered by the Franciscan order upon their arrival here in the Philippines in the 1600s. The site is at the corner of Calle Real and Calle Muralla, and he chose this spot specifically to be at the heart of the very history of the Philippines, and also to be close to the walled city of Intramuros. The period from January to July of 1952 was demanding. The building of the Mabini Hall was hectic and in full production. Parallel efforts were being exerted in setting up the mechanism for Lyceum's operation. The installation of the hiring, accounting of personnel, system, and determination, and the selection of professors, all these had to be taken up and discussed by the board of directors and by Jose P. Laurel himself. They were analyzed and reviewed and dealt with one item from another. The original building consists of about 40 classrooms to be furnished and requires some about 2,000 chairs, 80 blackboards, 45 professorial desks, and equal number of chairs and elevated platforms. School equipments and supplies such as steel cabinets, typewriters, water coolers, electric fans, chalk eraser, etc. are to be procured either through public bidding or laborious process of price shopping. To cut down the building cost of about 537,000 pesos, the board of directors itself had purchased the construction materials, and in most cases, payments were made from the form of shares of stock of the Lyceum, and eventually, the young corporation had resorted to borrowing. Thus, at a special board meeting on April 2, 1952, the board authorized Senator Jose P. Laurel to negotiate a loan of not more than 500 pesos from Rehabilitation Finance Corporation, and thus, in July of 1952, the construction was finally completed and ready for operation. Perhaps nothing more ambitious to build the new building of the Lyceum of the Philippines University is the construction of the Lyceum Tower that hovers all over Intramuros. The Lyceum Tower evokes the Pharos or Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the wonders of the ancient worlds. Dr. Laurel was deeply fascinated with the ancient city of Alexandria because of its famous ancient library. He wants Lyceum to be called as the Alexandria of the East, thus the creation of the Lyceum Tower, which now considered to be a hallmark and a unique characteristics of the campus of Lyceum in Intramuros. Another key feature of the Mabini Hall of Lyceum of the Philippines is this famous Hall of Heroes, which consists of many busts of famous national heroes of the Philippines, as a tribute to the dedication of Jose P. Laurel's nationalism, which contains the busts of the following national heroes: Dr. Jose Rizal, Marcelo del Pilar, Andres Bonifacio, and the namesake of the building, Apolinario Mabini. It is also reported that one of the busts of Apolinario Mabini was made by the future national artist for sculpture Guillermo Tolentino, the very same sculptor who sculpted the famous Bonifacio Monument in now is today Monumento in Caloocan City. Here are some of the early campus activities found in the Laurel collections on the early years of the Lyceum of the Philippines. On the left photo, we could see Jose P. Laurel during the ceremonial toss-up between the intramurals in Lyceum. And on the right photo, we could see Jose P. Laurel together with James Langley, the author of the famous Laurel-Langley Agreement that denotes the equality treatment in economics that replaced the Bell Trade Act and the Parity Rights Agreement in the 1940s. And now it's time for us now to learn the pioneer colleges of the Lyceum of the Philippines that will become the nucleus of this new academic institution by Jose P. Laurel. One of the three original schools established in Lyceum was now the College of Arts and Science. It started out as a School of Arts and Sciences and one of the three pioneer schools and colleges of the Lyceum of the Philippines. In 1952, on the opening of the academic year, it has reached an enrollment of about 350 students, with Professor Jose Adeva Sr. as the first Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences. In June 15 of 1953, the Bachelor of Arts and Associate in Arts were granted by the Department of Education to the School of Arts and Sciences. Adeva was designated on May 17, 1962 as the Dean of the School of Humanities and Sciences. This was subsequently followed on May 21, 1962 with the integration of the three different schools of the Lyceum. These are the School of Arts and Sciences, School of Journalism, School of Foreign Service, School of Education, and the Economic and Business Administration on May 21 of 1962, and now taken the current name College of Arts and Sciences. The second of these three original schools is now the College of Business Administration. In 1952, the same year Lyceum opened, it started out as a School of Commerce and headed by then Senator Gil Puyat as the first dean, with Hilarion Henares as its vice dean. 3 years into the operation in 1955, the school was finally able to graduate 53 students who joined the public and private sectors respectively. The School of Commerce was later expanded and became the School of Economics and Business Administration. In 1976, it finally took the current name College of Business Administration. Although not one of the three original schools or colleges in 1952, the College of International Relations started out as an offshoot of the School of Arts and Sciences. The College of International Relations started out as the School of Foreign Services by the time Lyceum started operation in 1952. During the academic year 1959-1960, it prompted its separation from the Arts and Sciences, with Jose P. Laurel becoming the acting dean himself of the newly separated School of Foreign Services. It was later renamed the College of Foreign Services. As a reflection of the changing times, in 2005, the college was further renamed the College of International Relations. Since its establishment, the College of International Relations has a very stellar roster of faculties and teaching staff that include the late President Diosdado Macapagal, who later became a special lecturer teaching Philippine foreign relations in 1969. 10 years later, former ambassador to the Holy See, Alberto Katigbak, in his capacity as the Dean of the College, initiated revisions to the Bachelor of Science Foreign Services curriculum, and now its graduates are now serving the Department of Foreign Affairs and in different diplomatic posts of the Philippines the world all over. One of the three original schools or colleges of the Lyceum is the College of Law. The College of Law opened its doors in 1952 with Senator Claro M. Recto and Senator Ambrosio Padilla serving as the first Dean and Vice Dean of the College of Law. It is committed to become a law school that emphasizes and upholds national morale and character. Upon its inception, the College of Law's faculty was composed of Senator Pedro Sabino, who taught remedial law and mercantile law. Senator Padilla taught civil law and criminal law, and former president himself and Lyceum founder Jose P. Laurel taught political and international law. With the exceptional caliber of its faculty, training, and expertise, it provided the students the necessary legal education that they deserve. The College of Law rose from the field of legal education and considered one of the best in the country during its time. In 2003, the College of Law finally transferred to the newly built Makati campus in a 7-story building located at the corner of Rufino and Levisa Streets in Salcedo Villages, thus becoming another adjacent or adjunct campus away from its original home in Intramuros. And here we have Jose P. Laurel sitting with his class for a class pictorial with Section B, the class of 1956 at the College of Law, which at that time still located in Intramuros. And also, they have, now today, the Claro M. Recto Academy of Advanced Studies, or commonly known as the Graduate School. The Graduate School was formally opened in the school year of 1953-1954 with the following course offerings leading to the master's degree in Law, Political Science, and History, with Dr. Jose P. Laurel himself acting as the first dean of the newly established graduate school. Later on, Dr. Benicio Katapusan succeeded Dr. Laurel in 1960 as the director of the graduate school because of the untimely death of Jose P. Laurel. The graduate school was later renamed the Claro M. Recto Academy of Advanced Studies in 1962 in honor of the late senator and good friend of Jose P. Laurel, Claro M. Recto. On November 6, 1959, Jose P. Laurel suddenly passed away, leaving his son Sotero Teroy Laurel to take the helm to become the next university president. Jose P. Laurel will never witness the growth of his academic institution, but Sotero Laurel made sure that his father's legacy will not go in vain. As stated earlier, Sotero Laurel, who was then in practice of law, fell in the mantle of responsibility of running the school. He was, however, the natural choice, as in the earlier years, Sotero or Don Teroy helped his father organize Lyceum and acted as the first executive secretary to his father. For the next 43 years of Lyceum's existence, Don Teroy nurtured Lyceum with the passion and commitment, making it a cradle of academic excellence and a bastion of assertive nationalism. During the dark years of the Marcos dictatorship from 1972 up to 1986, Lyceum was referred to as the other UP campus in Manila due to its strong student activism and counterculture, and many of its students are actively resisting the dictatorship of then President Marcos. And from this old photo from the Lyceum's archive, this was during the time of the counterculture of the late 1960s. From this photo, we could see that Lyceans are also actively engaging into the current issues of its time by exemplifying student activism of the 1960s and during the first quarter storm. It was during the time of Sotero Laurel when he decided to finally expand the Lyceum of the Philippines education all throughout the Philippines. From one campus in Intramuros, now Lyceum enjoys 6 campuses all over the Philippines. Don Terry believes in the importance of bringing quality education to the provinces and should not be limited to Metro Manila in providing the best education in the country. In 1966, the first branch of Lyceum outside of Metro Manila was established in the hometown of his own father, Jose P. Laurel, in Batangas. The mission of this new campus is to elevate the standard of education in the country. Further expansions included Lyceum of the Philippines University in Laguna, which was founded in the year 2000, and Lyceum of the Philippines University in Cavite, established in 2008. In 2003, as stated in the early videos, the Makati campus was now home of the College of Law, making it also part of the Lyceum of the Philippines University system. The latest school to be added into this system is the Lyceum of the Philippines University in Davao, which offered its first baccalaureate degrees in 2019. Now, we call this the Lyceum of the Philippines University with the 6 campuses mentioned in this lecture over here. After 43 years of fruitful and wonderful presidency of Lyceum, Don Tero is now about to pass the torch to his sons to continue the legacy of the Laurel when in pursuit of education and nationalism. After the death of Don Teroy in September 16, 2009, his sons took the helm to head the different schools of Lyceum, which have reached Makati, Cavite, and Davao as well. And here we have the 2 sons of Don Teroy concurrently serving as the president of the different Lyceum schools all over the Philippines. His eldest son, Roberto Laurel, is concurrently the president of LPU Manila, LPU Makati, and LPU Cavite campuses, whereas his younger son, Mr. Peter Laurel, is concurrently the president of LPU Batangas, LPU Laguna, and LPU Davao. Despite leading 2 different campuses, they are assured that the excellence and ambition of their father and grandfather lives on into the other Lyceum school system all over the Philippines. Under the presidency of Attorney Roberto Laurel as the 3rd university president of LPU Manila, innovations has to be made to meet with the growing global standards of the day, and starting with the College of Technology. The College of Technology started as the College of Engineering in 1978 with about 442 pioneer students under the supervision and deanship of Engineer Magleo Adriano. The college grew in numbers of enrollee and industry affiliations throughout the years, making it one of the higher educational institutions offering quality engineering programs of the day. In 2001, the university decided to establish the College of Computer Studies to cater to a rapidly increasing demand for IT professionals. And in the academic year 2015 to 2016, the 2 colleges decided to merge and form a new college which now calls the College of Technology, and offering new courses relating to the growing online uh, information technology innovations such as esports and e-gaming. The second college to be innovated under the presidency of Attorney Roberto Laurel was the College of International Tourism and Hospitality Management. The College of International Hospitality Management was founded in November of 1998, merging the BSHRM and the BS Tourism program of the College of Business Administration and the College of Arts and Science, respectively. It is the first in the Philippines to use the appellation International Hospitality Management, thus becoming one of the flagship courses of the Lyceum of the Philippines University, Manila. In 2009, the college name was changed from CIHM to CITHM, or the College of International Tourism and Hospitality Management, to reflect the expanding scope of the various program offering. To further improve the innovation of the college graduates, at this point, the Hotel of the Lyceum of the Philippines, Bayleaf, was established to cater for the in-house training of its graduates and its students. And in academic year 2016 and 2017, the new department, Senior High School, has commenced operation. The senior high school has been deployed in LPU Manila since the academic year 2016 and 2017 in pursuance of Republic Act No. 10533, which signed into law by President Noynoy Aquino on May 15, 2013. It is the Enhanced Basic Education Act mandating 12 years in Philippine basic education systems, which empowers every Filipino learners to become competitive in their chosen career path or any discipline to wish to pursue upon completing what is now today known as the K-12 program. Historically, senior high school has an enrollment of 1,034 grade 11 students when it commenced operation on June 13, 2016. Ms. Clarence L. Alipio served as the first principal and Ms. Irene Cruz as the first senior high school coordinator. The senior high school department offers three strands of the senior high school program, namely ABM strand, UM strands, and STEM strand. After more than 70 years of operation, Lyceum of the Philippines have garnered national and international awards, continuing the vision set by Jose P. Laurel and the continuing innovation set by Sotero Laurel throughout the years. Such awards, such as the Philippine Quality Awards, awarded to the Manila campus in 2013, and the recipient of the Philippine Quality Awards for Proficiency. Also, Lyceum had garnered Global Performance Excellence Award, certified ISO 9001.2015 certification of international certification, and the first Philippine university to become the accredited member of the International Center of Excellence in Tourism and Hospitality Education. And recently, Lyceum of the Philippines University had earned the coveted QS Star rating system of about 4 stars par excellence in most universities all over the world. And of course, Lyceum has produced notable alumni that truly exemplifies Veritas et Fortitudo, Pro Deo et Patria. And now on the screen are some of the notable alumni of the Lyceum of the Philippines University, starting with former President Rodrigo Duterte, who graduated AB Political Science, current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Alexander Gesbundo, who graduated AB Economics, and former Isabela Governor Grace Padaca, who graduated BS Accountancy at Lyceum of the Philippines. We also have on the bottom row, Gas Avelgas, activist Saturo Campo, and Susan Enriquez, who all took AB Journalism during their stay at the Lyceum of the Philippines, and many more other notable alumni have been produced by the university all throughout the years, just to name a few. To conclude this short discourse in the history of Lyceum of the Philippines, Lyceum will continue to move forward with innovation in the pursuit of excellence and tradition set by the founder Jose P. Laurel, for truth and for courage, for God and country. And all of this can be summed up in his poem, The Cheerful Teacher. Teaching is a noble profession. A selfless teacher, toiling uncomplainingly, diligently in abnegation, makes ours a happy world. At the break of dawn, this meek molder of man's character faces the day with renewed faith and enthusiasm in his noble mission to enlighten the plastic minds of the youth of the land. At dusk, when the work's day becomes a prelude to another, a teacher smiles with pride and in solid contentment, for he has unselfishly contributed his just share to the cause of public service. In the deep silence of the night, he burns his oil for the next lesson plan that will forge man's primitive instincts on the anvil of learning and equal opportunity. Within the four walls of the classroom, he radiates wisdom, understanding, and cheerfulness. By destiny, he is a maker of future citizens. And like him, unswayed by misgivings, unawed by opinions, unseduced by flattery, undismayed by disaster, a cheerful teacher leads a full life of love, courage, and Christian hope. A teacher has every reason to be cheerful. He has a beautiful soul, and all honor to him. Basically summarizing the educational philosophy that drove Jose P. Laurel in the foundation of the Lyceum of the Philippines, which will continue to grow in love of God and of country. And with that, thank you very much. Isang magandang araw para sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat po, Professor Atanasio, para sa interesanteng paksa tungkol sa kasaysayan ng Lyceum of the Philippines. Upang kumpletuhin ang hanay ng ating mga tagapagsalita ngayong araw, narito ang isa sa mga propesor buhat sa Universidad ng Santo Tomas. Si Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Albella ay isang faculty member sa ilalim ng Departamento ng Kasaysayan mula sa Faculty of Arts and Letters sa Universidad ng Santo Tomas na may ranggong Assistant Professor 4. Siya ay isang licensed professional teacher na may karanasan sa pagtuturo ng mga estudyante mula elementarya hanggang kolehiyo. Nakuha niya ang kanyang Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in History noong 2006, Master in History kung saan ginawaran siya ng cum laude noong 2008, at Doctor of Philosophy in History noong 2021 sa kanyang doctoral dissertation na pinamagatang The Passage of Republic Act 1425, Contextualizing Rizal, Nacionalismo at La Leyenda Negra, Its Unintended Consequence, na may gradong Benemeritus o Magna Cum Laude, lahat mula sa Universidad ng Santo Tomas. Nakapaglathala siya ng mga pananaliksik sa kasaysayan at nakapagpresenta ng mga papel sa lokal at international na mga komperensya sa edukasyon, pagkain, kasaysayan ng ekonomiya at kasaysayan ng Asya. Siya rin ang founder, publisher at editor-in-chief ng Tala, an online journal of history. Si Dr. Albella ay nagsisilbi rin sa universidad bilang Student Affairs Practitioner at bilang Student Welfare and Development Coordinator ng UST Conservatory of Music mula noong 2012. Para sa ikatlong paksa ng A History of the University of Santo Tomas, pasalubungan po natin ng isang masagabong palakpakan si Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Albella.
Good day to everyone. I am Emmanuel Jeric A. Albella from the Department of History, Faculty of Arts and Letters, University of Santo Tomas, and I'm here to present my topic entitled University of Santo Tomas, Empowering Spiritual Growth, Community Development, and Nation Building. Let us first discuss the beginnings of the University of Santo Tomas. The roots of the University of Santo Tomas can be traced to April 25, 1611, to the last will of its founder, Father Miguel de Benavides, OP, the third Archbishop of Manila. The university was founded 6 years after Father Benavides died, and it was made possible because of Fathers Domingo de Nieva and Bernardo de Santa Catarina by acting upon the last will of Father Benavides. But of course, the judicial founders of the university were the Dominican Order and the Province of the Most Holy Rosary. Fathers Nieva, Santa Catalina, its members, and Father Benavides considered instruments of its foundation. These Dominican friars made possible the final wishes of the third Archbishop, initially called the Colegio de Nuestra Señora de Santísimo Rosario, which they will rename Colegio de Santo Tomas after 6 years, named after the great leader and theologian, the patron saint of education, the angelic doctor, Saint Thomas Aquinas. Now, let's move now to the little bit of history of the university. So the first official name of the university when it was founded was the Colegio de Nuestra Señora del Santísimo Rosario. Okay? And the university's primary objective upon its foundation was to establish a seminary school to prepare young men for the priesthood and lay ministry, service in the church. The undergraduate programs of philosophy and sacred theology were first offered. The purpose of a seminary school was to respond to the call of the Council of Trent, the product of Roman Catholic Church's counter-reformation to the Reformation movement in the 16th century, wherein this educational institution shall prepare the young men for educating them in scripture and theology, and generally to prepare them for ordination to serve as clergy in academics or mainly in Christian ministry. In this case, new priests would be prepared for their vocation. From its foundation, the university became a way to the spiritual growth of the nation's people. The university is proud of its distinction in responding to the evolution of Roman Catholic doctrines that shaped the country for centuries. One of its prominent alumni, or one of its proudest alumni, was Father Jose Burgos, one of the three martyr priests dubbed in history as Gumburza. Their public execution in Bagong Bayan ignited the spirit of nationalism of the Filipinos. To this day, Father Burgos is still the greatest Tomasian of all time, or in short, the GOAT, okay? Finishing 8 degrees in the university with distinction. So, from Colegio to Universidad to the Pontifical and Royal Catholic University of the Philippines. On July 29, 1619, okay, the Colegio was authorized to confirm academic degrees in theology and philosophy. By November 20, 1645, okay, Innocent X elevated the college to the university status. In 1680, it was subsequently placed under the royal patronage of the Spanish monarchy. In 1734, okay, just to run down with the history, Pope Clement XII authorized the university to grant degrees in all existing faculties and others that might be introduced. The Pope also approved the curriculum in the entire field of jurisprudence. The university was given the following titles through the centuries: the Royal, Pontifical, and Catholic University of the Philippines. In 1785, for the loyalty shown by the administration and students who volunteered to defend Manila against the British invasion, King Charles III of Spain granted it the title of Royal University. Pope Leo XIII made the University of Santo Tomas a pontifical university in 1902, and in 1947, Pope Pius XII bestowed upon it the title of the Catholic University of the Philippines. Thus, all in all, its complete name today is the Pontifical and Royal University of Santo Tomas, the Catholic University of the Philippines. Of course, located in its present site in Sampaloc, Manila. So, in running down the history of the short history of the university, there was once also a very interesting fact that happened to the university sometime in 1865. When the university was declared as, or made by the government as the Bureau of Education at the time. On May 20, 1865, the university was tasked through a decree that enabled to become the Bureau of Education of the Philippines, with the rector or the head of the university as its director. It made UST handle all the secondary education matters, from the appointment of the professors, the submission of grades, and the signing of the diplomas to the Bachelor of Arts graduates. When Sigismundo Moret, in the photo, became the Minister of Colonies for the Philippines, he issued 2 decrees. Okay? And these 2 decrees that totally reorganized the education system in the islands. The first decree is to abolish all the secondary schools and place them under the single Instituto Filipino. The second decree converted the university, the only institution of higher learning in the islands, into a Universidad de Filipinas. This leads to others to claim that UST was once today's CHED or DepEd, if you're going to look at it. Or others, this is just an inside joke, no? We're simply joking the university in it because of this thing that happened to the university. We're just simply joking the university initials as UST stands for UP Sana Tayo. The fall of the Spanish liberals and the restoration of the monarchical government in Spain abolished these decrees. Thus, the university returned its full operation to the Dominicans in 1877. Of course, some of you might know that the university also became an internment camp during the Japanese occupation in the country at the height of World War II. To date, or to count, more or less, there are around 4,000 civilians camped in the 4,000 civilians that camped in the university until they had been liberated in 1945 by the Americans. Okay. Now, with this, the university has proven its capacity to serve the community, especially its forte, the education sector. Even today, the university is true to its mission of serving the community and helping them to grow and be sustainable, effectively, and efficiently. Of course, we are all aware, okay, that since this is the only university at the time, no, the university is actually home, or still home, to some of the great Filipinos in our history. Aside from Father Jose Burgos, the 2 other priests of Gomburza, Father Mariano Gomez and Jacinto Zamora, were also studied at the university. As mentioned, their martyrdom, according to many historians in the country, awakened the spirit of nationalism of the Filipinos. Aside from them, national heroes like Jose Rizal, Emilio Jacinto, and Marcelo H. del Pilar, to name a few. The university also proud that we somehow produced 4 presidents in our history. We have here Manuel Luis Quezon, Sergio Osmeño Sr., Jose P. Laurel, and of course, Diosdado P. Macapagal. The university is also proud of having national artists as its alumni. So many national artists that produced by the university, but some of them are Hernani Cuenco, the national artist for music. This is Hernani Cuenco. Okay, we have also Bienvenido Lombrera, the national artist for literature. Francisco Manyosa, the national artist for the architecture. And we have also Gerardo De Leon, or mas kilala siyang Jerry De Leon, as national artist for film. And of course, Rolando Tino, national artist for theater and literature. These are only few, but we have so many more of it. But of course, because of the time, no, we cannot mention all of them here. Now, to end this, the university is actually continuing its legacy. Up to this day, the university remains solid in its formation of the country's future, guided by its core values, which is the commitment, competence, and compassion. The university strives to contribute to the church And at the same time, okay, Indonesia. Okay, its never-ending improvement of curriculum and instruction, as well as its facilities for making it more conducive to the learning of our young people, is an evidence that the university remains relevant in the country and around the globe. Truly, the university remains blessed, imbued with unending grace for the service of Filipino people. And that's it. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much and have a blessed day to all of you. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po, Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Abella, para sa pagtalakay ng kasaysayan ng Universidad ng Santo Tomas. Sa puntong ito, upang bigyan ng paglalagom ang mga inilahad ng mga paksa, bigyan natin ng isang masigabong palakpakan ang kasalukuyang program head ng BA Social Sciences Area Studies Program at kasapi sa komite ng MSP, si Professor Atoy Navarro.
Isang mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat. Hayaan ninyong basahin ko yung aking paglalagom sa tatlong panayam. Mahalaga ang tatlong MNL, mga natatanging lektura tungkol sa piling universidad sa Maynila na kinabibilangan ng panayam na pagtatampok sa kasaysayan ng PUP ng BA History Batch 2019 at sa papel ni Nemencio Prudente sa paglago ng universidad ni Professor Mark Joseph Santos, University of Santo Tomas Empowering Spiritual Growth, Community Development, and Nation Building ni Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Albella, at History of the Lyceum of the Philippines University ni Ginoong Jean Michael Atanasio. Ambag ang mga ito sa araling institusyonal, partikular sa kasaysayang institusyonal. Ngunit inaasahang hindi lamang kontribusyon ang mga ito sa araling institusyonal, kundi ambag din sa araling Maynila, Manila Studies, o ang sistematikong pag-aaral ng kaisipan, kultura, at lipunang Manilan, at araling pampuok o sistematikong pag-aaral ng kaisipan, kultura at lipunan ng isang pook na Pilipino. At bilang mga institusyong pang-edukasyon, ang mga universidad na ito, masasabi nating kontribusyon din ang mga panayam sa araling kapantasan. May papangatwirang kumpara sa mga estruktura at sektor, pinaka-impluwensyal sa isang individual ang mga institusyon. Ano ba ang mga estruktura? Tumutukoy ito sa mga kaayusan at kayarian gaya ng kalikasan, kapaligiran, kaisipan, kamalayan, kalinangan, at kapangyarihan, kabuhayan, kalipunan. So, environmental, ecological, cultural, political, economic, social, na nabuo at naging matatag sa mahaba-haba ring panahon. Kasi sinasabing nakaka-impluwensya ang mga estrukturang ito sa isang individual. Gayon din ang mga sektor. Ano naman ang mga sektor? Tumutukoy naman ito sa pagpapangkat ng lipunan ng mamamayan ayon sa uri, etnisidad, relihiyon, kasarian, sexualidad, gulang at iba pa. So naiimpluwensyahan ng isang individual ng kanyang kinabibilangang class, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexuality, and generation at iba pa. Pero maraming magsasabi at nagsasabi na kumpara sa estruktura at sektor, pinaka-impluwensyal sa isang individual ang institusyon. At ano naman ang mga institusyon? Tumutukoy ito sa mga organisasyong panlipunang binuo at kadalasang may pampublikong katangian at katatagan. Sa makatwid, tumutukoy ang araling institusyonal sa sistematikong pag-aaral ng mga organisasyong panlipunang binuo at kadalasang may pampublikong katangian at katatagan. Maraming magsasabi na may 8 pinaka-impluwensyal na institusyon sa lipunang Pilipino at sa 8 ito, some would argue na ang mag-anak o ang pamilya at yung kamag-anakan ang pinaka-impluwensyal. Pero sa kontemporaryong panahon, meron ding mag-argue na sasabihin nila na pinaka-impluwensyal yung media bilang isang institusyon. Ano pa man, yung 8 pinaka-impluwensyal sa isang individual, yung 8 institusyon ay kinabibilangan bukod sa mag-anak, pamilya, kamag-anakan ng komunidad ng pamayanan. So nakaka-impluwensya ang institusyon ng komunidad, ganun din yung mga institusyon ng samahan, mga kapatiran, barkada, organisasyon. At syempre, influential na institusyon ang paaralan, ang simbahan, ang pagawaan o workplace, ang pamahalaan o gobyerno, at ang media nga gaya ng nabanggit ko. Bahagi syempre ang mga universidad ng institusyon ng paaralan. Bilang mga araling institusyonal, yung pag-aaral ng mga universidad, mahalagang maipuok ang salaysay ng mga universidad sa kaisipan, kultura, at lipunang Manilenyo or Manilan bilang mga araling Maynila or Manila Studies at araling pampuok, so local studies. Ano ang katangian ng Maynila sa iba't ibang yugto ng kasaysayan ng mga universidad na ito? Paano ba ang naging talaman ng 3 universidad sa komunidad, pamayanan at mamamayan ng Maynila? So ito yung maaaring paksain, talakayin sa hinaharap. Gayon din, bilang mga institusyong pang-edukasyon, mahalagang maitampok ang mga ambag ng mga universidad sa produksyon ng kaalaman at karunungan na bahagi ng mga paksain ng dinadalungan ni Professor Mark Joseph Santos na araling kapantasan na pinagkakaiba natin sa araling intelektual. Dahil nga educational institution ang mga universidad, nagpro-produce ito ng knowledge, mahalaga na tingnan yung production of knowledge na bahagi ng araling kapantasan. Kaya rin hindi katakatakang itinampok ni Professor Mark Joseph Santos ang makabayang edukador at intelektual na si Nemensio Prudente sa kanyang panayam. Mahalaga rin ang puwang na inilaan kina Gumbulsa, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos at Jacinto Zamora, bukod pa kina Marcelo del Pilar, Jose Rizal, Emilio Jacinto at ilang dating presidente ng Pilipinas at national artist. So pambansang alagad ng sining sa panayam ni Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Albela. Gayun din, mahalaga ang pagpapakilala kina Jose P. Laurel, Sotero Laurel, Roberto Laurel at Peter Laurel sa panayam ni Ginoong Jean Michael Atanasio. Lahat ito ay hakbang tungo sa mas komprehensibong araling kapantasan. Para sa akin, mahalagang komprehensibong talakayin sa kasaysayan ng mga universidad ang buhay at kontribusyong intelektual ng kanilang mga pangunahing pantas o paham. Sa pangkalahatan, mahalagang ambag ang 3 panayam sa araling institusyonal. Sa hinaharap, inaasahang mas maiugnay pa sa Manila Studies, sa araling Maynila, sa local studies, sa araling pampuok at sa araling kapantasan ang mga ganitong pag-aaral. So pagbati sa mga tagapagsalita sa kanilang impormatibong panayam at pagbati sa Manila Studies Program sa pagtataguyod ng MNL mga natatanging lektura. So maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Professor Navarro, para sa inyong makabuluhang komentaryo sa mga panayam. Sa puntong ito, nais naming ibigay ang sertipiko ng pagpapahalaga sa lahat ng ating mga tagapagsalita sa unang episode ng MNL, mga natatanging lektura na may focus sa kasaysayan ng mga piling pamantasan sa Manila. Hayaan niyo pong basahin ko ang nilalaman ng sertipiko. This certificate of appreciation is given to Mark Joseph Santos, Jean Michael Atanasio, at Dr. Emmanuel Jeric Albela for being a speaker for the webinar MNL, Mga Natatanging Lektura on the History of Selected Universities in Manila, live streamed through the UPMcast Manila Studies Program Facebook page, given the 30th day of November 2023. Signed, Dr. Wensley M. Reyes, Manila Studies Program Convener, UP Manila College of Arts and Sciences, and Dr. Maria Constancia O. Carillo, PhD, Dean, College of Arts and Sciences, University of the Philippines, Manila. Muli, maraming salamat sa ating mga kasama na nakilahok sa diskusyong ngayong araw. Nawa ay marami tayong natutunan mula sa ating mga tagapagsalita at mangyaring salubungin natin sila ng isang masigabong palakpakan. Isang huling paalala sa ating mga tagapakinig at tagapanood sa MNL, mga natatanging lektura na may focus sa kasaysayan ng Piling Universidad sa Maynila, mangyaring iscan ang QR code para sa link ng ating survey form para sa naganap na panayam at upang makakuha ng Certificate of Attendance. Makakaasa kayo na ang anumang impormasyon ipinagkatiwala ninyo sa amin sa pamamagitan ng survey na ito ay aming iingatan. Maraming salamat sa inyong panahon at kooperasyon. At mula sa Universidad ng Pilipinas Manila, Kolehiyo ng Adhamat Sining at Manila Studies Program, isang taos-pusong pasasalamat sa lahat ng lumahok ng unang serye ng MNL, mga natatanging lektura. Magkikita-kita po tayong muli para sa isa na namang makabuluhan at punong-puno ng kaalaman ng saliksik pangkasaysayan. Ako po ang inyong lingkod, si Lihan Y. Alianza. Mabuhay ang Maynila at magandang araw sa lahat. Muli, maraming salamat.
You